Hi there, this is a response to a video by acyberguy, video called The Game, Intellect versus Will. Several things to say about this video there, acyberguy. I mean, if I understand it correctly, I'm just saying what I think you're saying there. You give this thing what you call a game, a kind of thought experiment in which several people wake up in the morning to a changed world. And a Christian wakes up and they find that evidence has come in, that it's definitely been proven that God does not exist. What did they do beyond that point? And then a parallel thought experiment, an atheist wakes up to a reality in which God has been proven to definitely exist. Yeah. And again, what do you do from there on in? And particularly, as you say in your video, in relation to what you call intellect and will, which is, do you use that information, that empirical information, that evidence that you've been given, and change your beliefs accordingly? If you're an atheist, you become a Christian, you become an atheist. Or do you use what you've called will, or belief, I guess you would say, and continue, even in the, not just in the lack of evidence, but in the presence of contradictory evidence, to sustain the beliefs you had prior to that. And you seem to be suggesting that you would like to try, or you suspect you would continue to be a Christian, even if all the evidence was against you. Which I can respect, that's fine. I think there's several things about this. One is the form of the question itself, which I'll try and come back to. But the other is the this thing about sustaining a belief afterwards. Because I think there is a difference there, isn't there? Because I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I suspect that if you were provided with conclusive evidence that Jesus was a fiction, God didn't exist, and so on and so on, I don't know how you would get that evidence actually, because as we know, science doesn't prove negatives. But if that somehow came in, I think your beliefs would change, and I suspect you would adopt a philosophy which is sometimes called the philosophy of the as-if. I can't remember if that's associated with Wenger, something like that. Anyway, I'll see if I can find out. But it's this idea of the philosophy of the as-if, which is to keep investing in or engaging with an idea. Perhaps belief is too strong a word, but to keep working with an idea, not because it's true, but because it's very, very useful. And we all do it. We all have philosophies of the as-if for large parts of it, and it has similarities with model-dependent realism, which Stephen Hawking talks about in his most recent book, Grand Design, where we kind of know that, for example, in Stephen Hawking's book's case, we kind of know that a lot of the models that we have for understanding the way the universe works, we know they're incomplete, and we know they're probably wrong in significant ways, but they're useful enough, they're close enough, they allow us to proceed with certain inquiries. They hold together a lot of facts in a way which is coherent enough for us to climb up them as a scaffolding and get to the next stage. So there's a kind of sense of that. They're kind of beliefs. We kind of believe in the Big Bang, even though it's a slightly undescribed phenomena. We kind of believe in other things like that. We kind of believe in some subatomic stuff. But we don't believe in them in the same way that we believe in the reality of this glass. We believe in them in a way which acknowledges that their temporary status and their usefulness status. And I think there's a parallel there with what you're talking about, if I understand you correctly, to do with belief in Jesus or belief in God. Even if it was conclusively proved that there was no God, just as it's been kind of conclusively proved that there is no thing called a self, no essential self, and yet we keep going through our lives believing in it because it's useful. If it was conclusively proved there was no God, I can kind of imagine a lot of people continuing to believe that just by deploying the philosophy of the as-if. I will continue to live my life as if there was a God, as if there was a benevolent creator, as if there was an omnipotent lawgiver, as if there was all the rest of the attributes that God has. Because believing that kind of thing or working in the kind of presence of that idea can be quite useful. I don't have any problem with that. And as I say, we do it all the time anyway, but not in quite such a pointed way as the one you're talking about. The other thing I'm interested in here with your video, which is fascinating, is the way that you phrase it actually. Because it's a very loaded question, not intentionally, and this isn't intended as a criticism in any way, but it is a kind of loaded question, because you're talking about empirical evidence. you know, we wake up in the morning, us atheists wake up in the morning and there's all this empirical evidence for the existence of God. Or Christians wake up and there's all this empirical evidence for the absence of any kind of God. And really, if you're working in that kind of framework and acknowledging the existence of empirical evidence one way or the other, then what you do next is pretty much determined. You find out more about it. If I was an atheist woke up and there's all this empirical evidence for the existence of God, I'd have a whole set of more questions to ask. What kind of a God? What's the limitations of its power? How do I interact with it? What, you know, where did it come from? Where's it going? There's all kinds of other empirical information I would want from that. And similarly, presumably, if it was evidence for non-existence, a whole set of more questions would follow from that. So either way, it's an empirical question. And I've been trying to think about how to find a complement to that. And it's going to sound really weird, I think, but I think the complementary one is a kind of a flip side to your thought experiment, your game, a counter game. Would be, what would it be like to wake up in the morning, myself as a atheist, if I woke up with the revealed conviction that God existed, no empirical evidence, nothing changed in the world. The only thing that had changed was my sense of conviction. It had just been revealed to me individually, or yourself, or other Christians. What would it be like if you woke up in the morning, again, no empirical changes to the world, but your conviction had changed, so you just felt for sure, without a shred of doubt in your mind, that there was no God and that Jesus was a fiction. I mean, because that's closer, I think, to the kind of religious spirit. You know, religions that try to claim empirical evidence are always weak, aren't they? It works best, if that's the right word, when it appeals to personal experience and revelation, I guess, something like that. And most religions seem to be significantly housed and originated within personal experience and personal revelation, don't they? And the accumulation of authority around personal revelation. So I think that would be quite interesting. I mean, I kind of know what the answer is, you know, because personal revelation set against empiricism, certainly for the last 400 years, has been a kind of lesser authority, and for good reason. You know, beyond 400 years ago, really the only place to find authority was in princes, priests and bullies, and ultimately in personal revelation. But for 400 years at least, you know, since the scientific revolution and the empiricisms and all that kind of philosophies that follow from that, other kinds of authority have taken precedence. So anybody that appeals to revelation now really feels like they're cheating, don't they? And it's more of a, we would class that as psychology rather than philosophy or knowledge these days. Well, I think I've burbled on a bit really, but those are my responses anyway. Yeah, one is to do with philosophy of the as-if, continuing to believe, but not quite in the same way. It's belief, Jim, but not as you know it. And the other is to do with different forms of knowing. As soon as you bring the empirical, as soon as you make the game an empirical game, then you've effectively collapsed religion anyway, because you're asking questions about it. Flipping it over, it would have to be about revelation, and that's something a lot of people aren't very comfortable with. Anyway, thanks for that.